There are moments in every person's life when they face intense adversity. They're crucibles that forge who they become as individuals and as leaders. Now more than ever, we need leaders who are called to a higher standard, focused on leaving it better than they found it, and paying it forward to the next generations. Now, let's join Fire Chief Randy Bruegman as he speaks with leaders from all walks of life, as he explores and learns from their personal journeys and the crucibles that have forged them into better leaders and better people.
Leadership isn't about driving performance. It's about designing experiences that actually serve people. In this episode, I sit down with Stephen Merrill, a customer service strategist and the author of the Customer Service Cookbook. With decades of experience leading service strategy at the enterprise level, Stephen helps organizations modernize how they care for both their employees and their customers. In this conversation, we explore how service breakdowns are often leadership breakdowns, why empathy and efficiency can go hand in hand, and what it really takes to build systems that serve people well, from the front lines to the C-suite. If you've ever believed that culture and customer satisfaction is someone else's job, this episode might change your mind. My name is Chief Randy Bruegman, and this is the Leadership Crucible Podcast. Well, Stephen, thanks for joining me on the Leadership Crucible Podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Chief. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. Hey, well, let's start with your story. You know, what and who shaped who you've become to this point?
Sure. So there's definitely a few people, definitely more than one. But starting off, I would have to say my parents and how they raised me. I'm from New Hampshire originally, and so grew up shoveling the driveway, shoveling the front walk, learned the importance of a work ethic from a very young age. At 12 years old, had my first job actually working on my grandparents' Christmas tree farm, believe it or not. And we would sell Christmas trees. And that's a very New Hampshire thing, I guess. But that's where I just learned about people and how to connect and what people liked and didn't like. And then as I got older, I had some really great mentors that really helped guide me in terms of learning more about business, learning more about communication, and really just people. My wife has been a massive, massive impact in a huge way on my life as well, and has helped me get where we continue to grow and where we are today. So can't just boil it down to one person, but definitely starts off with my parents and then some really amazing mentors and my wife.
Well, you know, that's amazing. Let's go back to the Christmas tree work, because, you know, we've taken the family out several times to do that. And
Sure.
Number one, that's difficult work. It's very hard work.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there's a lot of interaction there. And so do you think that will help lay the groundwork for what you are doing today?
I think it probably did at the time. Obviously, I had no idea of a connection. But yeah, people would pull in. Like I said, my grandparents owned it. So we would be waiting, cars would park on the grass. And from the second they get out of the car, it's an opportunity to interact and to engage. And so just with a nice good morning, it's freezing cold out there in New Hampshire in the middle of the winter, but still trying to make them excited and knowing they're coming to do something they've done for literally decades. People would come and be like, hey, I've brought my kids here, and now I'm bringing my grandkids here. And so just to be part of that family experience was really special. And then they would actually go and cut the tree down themselves. We'd provide the saw. But then when they'd bring it back, we'd have to shake the trees out, make sure there's no birds' nests or any needles or anything of that nature, and bale it up and then put it on top of their car. So a lot of customer interaction, working with a few other people while you're lifting heavy objects and putting trees through balers and things. But yeah, I think that's a good connection. And I think so, because it's just realizing that person's coming for a really special time that they look forward to every single year. And you can either add to that or keep it kind of the same status quo level, or hopefully not, but take away from that. So it was always the goal to make it really enjoyable for them.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure you did that for sure. But
tried to.
You know, I'll bet you did. You know, you've written a book called Customer Service Cookbook.
Yes, sir.
And what sparked you to do that?
That's a really good question. So I have an amazing mentor, Lee Cockrell, and Lee ran Disney for years. And if you've ever heard him or met him, anybody watching, listening to this, he's just who he is. He's a down-to-earth person with a lot of great experience. And I've learned so much from him about what it means to provide an exceptional customer experience. And we call it, when talking with him, a world-class customer experience. And so long story short, I've been working with business owners and helping them understand from a marketing and sales perspective the importance of, inbound leads and customer acquisition. And I would hear from so many of them that, hey, we're generating leads, closing deals, bringing on customers, but the retention was something that not many people focused on. Now that you have the customer, how do you really take care of them? And so I started to think about what Lee was teaching and what I was learning from him, and thinking about the conversations I was having with business owners, and thinking, okay, if everybody's chasing leads, what if you simply just took better care of the people that you already have? And that also goes for your internal team members.
Yeah.
And so I've worked in many different corporate environments, and I've seen some really intense environments where people would literally break down, sometimes even in tears, and resign from positions because it was just such intense environment. And I don't think that's a really healthy way to work. And so I thought, okay, if I start to look at and solve specific problems within the hiring process, onboarding process, team member development process, actually setting goals and tracking accountability and growth, I think I could help people. And so, long story short, I built out about 50 different tools over the years of working, consulting with companies. And then my daughter was born, and I'm not a cook by any means. My wife's an amazing cook. I'm not. I'm really good at doing dishes. But I saw a cookbook, and it was just in our kitchen. And I was like, you know what? What if I took a lot of these same principles, customer service, marketing, sales, team member development, and made them into something where if I'm a business owner who's busy and doesn't have time to read, let's say 500 pages, because that's how long the book is, how could I say, okay, I'm having trouble onboarding team members or training and developing them effectively. I need one solution. Where do I go for it? And I thought, well, a cookbook has that. If you're looking to make a stew, you're looking to make a pasta, you go and you look for one recipe, you flip to a certain page, and it gives you kind of the story behind the recipe sometimes, and then the ingredients and how to do it. And so I thought, hey, this cookbook kind of structure could really work well in a business sense for people who are busy, don't have a lot of time. This could be their go-to manual or cookbook where they can find what I call recipes. And so it was kind of a crazy idea, but my daughter was literally days old, and I was like, all right, my goal is I'll create some kind of business cookbook before she turns a year old. And so that's where the Customer Service Cookbook idea was born. And so I literally just started grabbing different cookbooks from different chefs. And I was like, how do they structure it? What does it feel like? How easy is it to navigate? And so long story long, that's how I came up with the idea. Was just thinking, hey, this could be kind of an interesting flair to put towards something that some people might think is a horrible subject, customer service. Most people think customer service is such a disservice and maybe something that's boring, but it's really not. And so, yeah, that's how I got to that kind of idea and that approach.
Well, it's a great concept, and you talk about Lee, and I know Lee very well too. He sits on our board for our foundation, and very insightful person on a lot of different levels, but especially when it comes to customer service. And so, and I think he's shared several times, and I've heard others that are leading people say, if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of the customer. But you got to really have a focus on that, and you have to kind of link that to what you're trying to achieve as an organization. Have you found that to be true as well?
Absolutely. I don't think there's anything more true, because so many times managers, leaders, CEOs, they get so focused on revenue and, hey, what are we doing quarter over quarter, year over year? And that's great. You need to have increased revenue in order to grow a business and make that survive. But if you're not taking care of your internal team members, they could care less about the product you're selling, the service you're providing, the new sales technique or strategy. They're not going to be bought in at all. They might listen to you, but they're not retaining any of it to actually care enough to want to go and deploy that on their day-to-day operations. And so, for an example, when I first came up with the idea of just helping team members, I was a director at a company, and I simply had a one-on-one meeting with a team member of mine, and his name was Esteban, but everybody would call him Esteban. And everybody calls me Stefan because of how my name is spelled. So I simply asked him, I was like, hey, let's just have a conversation. Forget about work. This is not about metrics or data. I just want to know how you're doing. Tell me about your family. And I was like, and if you could, how do you pronounce your name the right way? And he's like, oh, he's kind of shocked. He's like, oh, it's Esteban. And I said, okay, great. Thank you. Because everybody calls you Esteban. All of a sudden, he came back in. His productivity skyrocketed. He became the top performing team member in the company. In that department, he would show up earlier, he would work later, his work was more accurate, he had more passion for what he was doing simply because he knew somebody cared about him. He literally came in the next day and said, Steve, I told my entire family that you asked how to pronounce my name correctly because nobody's ever done that. So it's simple, small things. And to Lee's point, when you put your people before paperwork, when you simply slow down and keep the main thing, which is your people, and you care about them and you help them get clear when you're hiring them and when you're training and developing them. Hey, what is your purpose outside of work? And what is your purpose? What do you believe it is here? And how can we help align you with the right resources, training, development programs to help you grow in that way? Not try to keep you as a specific level that you were hired at so it doesn't cost us money. That's a way to create a really negative culture. How can I develop you based on what you actually care about? You're in a position for a reason. We hired you for a reason. But if we care enough about you and get to know you well enough, the loyalty increases. And what I always teach business owners is you really want to focus on 2 core metrics. Because again, everybody's thinking of like ROAS, return on ad spend, or return on investment, or things of that nature. And I say, and I train leadership and team members this, focus on what I call LPC. And that stands for loyalty per customer. If you can establish a baseline of the LPC that each customer has and then start to increase that loyalty, you'll have a customer for life. But how do you do that? You do that by the same way you've gotten to know your team members. You get to know your customers. You ask them honest questions. They have so many answers that you're probably paying a lot of consultants for that if you simply ask them, they would give you the answer, say, here's how you can make my experience better. So focus on the loyalty per customer. And then the other one I have them train on is EPC. And EPC just means experiences per customer. How many experiences can I provide you, whether I'm a restaurant, a construction company, whatever the case may be, from the time that you arrive or we arrive to provide you a service? How am I trying to create exceptional experiences for you? And if I focus on those 2 things, experiences per customer, that will naturally increase the loyalty per customer. But again, we just have to think of it a little bit differently because most people think on, hey, where's the next lead? What's it cost me to generate that lead? What's the conversion? And again, all necessary. But once you've gotten that business, how do you take care of them? So very long answer to your question, but I hope that makes some sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I'm just, as you were talking, I was just thinking about, the places that I frequent have both of those things going for them. I mean, it's like walking into the Cheers bar, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. They know you by name.
They know you by name. They know what you like, and there's a relationship. They built a relationship with their customer, and that's critical. And I think that's what's separating companies today from those that are really successful and those that are not.
Absolutely, especially in a post-pandemic society, everybody's craving connection today more than ever. And if you simply, as a business owner, slow down to realize that, hey, the people that are your quote unquote employees, they're people, they're going through things. You can care a little bit more about them and see how that changes their life. And then your employee's going to want to do the same thing to their customer. If you go to a grocery store right now, it's nothing against anybody who works at a grocery store, but people are just checking items. And if they're going to ask you a question, hey, how's your day going? They're not really listening to the response because they're doing this all day long. And they probably feel like, well, my manager doesn't really care about me. I'm just simply checking out groceries. No, that's a huge critical piece of the experience of that customer going grocery shopping. You can make that an exceptional experience, or it can just be a basic or an expected experience. And that's where most people live. But yeah, just care more. Just pay attention more.
Yeah, and that starts with the managers and the leaders of the organization is just walking around, and sometimes it's as simple as just spending a few minutes with one of your employees just to see how their family's doing, like you pointed out, and that goes a long way.
It does.
So you go into a lot of organizations, and you're trying to build that culture to do exactly what we just talked about. So tell us a little bit about that and how you go about doing that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So culture is something that I think is become overused now. It's kind of like entrepreneurship. Everybody thinks that it's really cool and exciting, and culture means that I can buy a few ping pong tables and then people will just be happy. That's not culture at all. It's really what we've talked about. And in order to impact a culture, it really has to come from the leaders of that organization. And most of the time when people talk about leaders, they think CEO, COO, like the top people at the company. Yes, of course, leadership starts there, but also leadership starts with every single person in that company. So it could be the newest hire who's brand new, and the way that they perform every day and the positive attitude they have, that is either going to positively impact or negatively impact everybody around them. And that's culture. And so what we do when we work with organizations is really, I call it an audit. And of course, everybody's excited to do an audit, but it's really understanding from the leadership team, hey, tell me about your company. What are you guys good at? What do you guys enjoy? What are the limitations you have internally, externally? I just ask a few really basic questions, because from those, you'll learn a lot about the actual sentiment from a leadership team. Because if all the answers are kind of roses, like, oh, we're great, everything's good, okay, that might not be the most transparent situation there, because people are people. Things are going to happen. Things are going to get stressful. And it's okay to be like, hey, we're really struggling with this. Or, maybe it's internal communication between departments that we're having a hard time with. We all really respect each other and we're working really hard, but it feels like things are slipping through the cracks. Okay, great. That helps us identify where these mishaps are happening, where these bottlenecks are happening. And so once I meet with a leadership team, it can't stop there, because again, I'm sure you've heard this too, speaking to CEOs. I've asked many, hey, what does an open door policy mean to you? And they're like, oh, we live by an open door policy. It's great. Anybody can come and talk to us. And then I'll go and speak to any team member that they have. And I'll be like, do you think you have an open door policy here? And they're like, no, not a chance. That door's maybe cracked open. It's not an open door policy. It's just like, hey, I'm afraid to bring anything to my boss. I feel like I'm new here, so I have to earn my way to that respect. And you just have to get clear on what the overall feeling is. Are people excited to do what they do for you every day, providing a product, providing a service? Are they waking up with new ideas? Are they trying to solve problems for you? Or are they simply clocking in and clocking out? And so once we get an understanding of that, we come in and host a seminar. And that could be a 4-hour, an 8-hour, a 2-day seminar, really focusing on how to gain clarity on purpose in the workplace, then how to understand a tool that we developed called the 5 levels of the expected customer experience. Because a lot of times, if you and I walked outside right now and there was a row of 10 business owners and we asked every single one of them, hey, what kind of experience do you provide to your customers? What do you think they'd say?
Oh, that's great.
It's great. It's the best. It's exceptional. Right. Because they're not going to tell you anything other than that. That is, not even their fault. That's typically maybe that's the intent. Like, I'm hoping my people are doing a great job. I hope they're providing exceptional experience. And then if you go and sit down at that restaurant or you try to do business with that business, you'll see it's probably not the greatest. And that's nobody's fault. It's just because there's a lot of moving pieces. People are focused on 10 different things at the same time. So we teach each company that there's 5 different levels of the customer experience. The first is a basic level. And that means you're actually going in. Let's say you and I are going to an Italian restaurant. There's certain expectations we have. The way it looks, maybe the way we're greeted when we walk in, how long it takes for us to sit, how long it takes for us to order, the quality of the food, etc. A basic experience is actually one notch below your expectations. So companies providing basic level experiences is what I call level 1. They will go out of business. It's the silent killer of most businesses, because if you and I go to that Italian restaurant and we receive less than we expected, are we really excited to go and tell everybody we know about how amazing this restaurant is? And are most human beings apt to say to a manager, hey, I'm really not happy with this experience? No, because we feel it's rude. And so what do most people do? They pay the check. And they're like, oh man, I'm just not coming back here. And they leave. They don't write a review. They don't say anything to the manager. And that's why it's the silent killer. Because if you leave having a bad experience, that team still thinks they're providing good or great experiences, but they're actually not. And so we really have to get clear as a company, hey, in any of the different phases of business, because there's 3 phases of business that I'll walk through, but in any of those phases, are we thinking we're doing a great job, but we really haven't even asked our customers in the last 6 to 12 months and gotten honest feedback? So there's basic level, companies going out of business. There's an expected level. It's a level 2. It's just, we go to that restaurant, we get what we expected. The food was fine. The bill was fine. But we're not like, wow, that was amazing. Nobody's personalizing the experience for us. The third level on top of that, and this is where companies can start to charge a little bit more, is a desired experience. And so this is when a company's taken time to actually get to know their team members and to get to know their customer well enough so they know, okay, when Chief and Steve pulled up to the Italian restaurant, here's what they would love to have happen. They'd love for it to be clean, parking lot, easy to park, well lit. A door opens for them from one of our team members, greeting them in, welcoming them. Maybe they know our names because they've looked at the itinerary of who's coming in. All of a sudden, we're like, wow, this is different. This is a different experience. Yeah. That's more desired. And then you have a level 4, which is called a memorable experience. This is Disney. The first time I went to Disney, this was a year ago, I didn't know that people were matching shirts as families there. And I saw a family wearing matching shirts, and the dad had on his shirt, it said, most expensive day of my life. And he was excited to wear that shirt and say, hey, this is the most expensive day of my life. But the reason why companies can charge higher prices when they're delivering memorable experiences is because human beings want to create memories that last with people they love, friends and family. And that's what Disney has figured out. And so as long as the value you provide is helping people create memories, the price becomes irrelevant. And then that last one, which is really where only about 5% of companies live and operate daily, that's the exceptional level of experience. That's a level 5. That's the highest. And that is when you are just really hitting home runs in all of the other 4 areas. You're being proactive. You're thinking ahead. You know what your customer wants. You're actually being 2 steps, 3 steps, 5 steps ahead of them. And it's just a better experience than they could have ever imagined. They become a customer for life. That LPC is through the roof, the loyalty per customer, because you've provided so many different experiences. And you can apply that framework to any company in any industry. But anyways, it's a little bit of a tangent there. But if you simply slow down to get to know what your customers actually desire, and then if you do one thing, and this is what I tell people all the time, give customers more than they asked for. If you can give someone more than they asked for, that loyalty increases because they're, wow, this is great. I didn't expect them to do this. They didn't have to do this. I really appreciate that. And so it's just small hinges swing big doors. It's small incremental changes that can make a huge impact. So yeah, I'm not sure what the question was or how we got there, but that's where we start off.
Well, it was about culture, and you've hit a lot of key points, and it really all starts at the top.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with the CEO and the upper level management really walking the talk.
Yeah.
And building that culture and reaching out and making sure their employees are happy, but also, I just had an experience. You talked about an Italian restaurant. We were in Florida here several months ago, and we went into a small Italian restaurant. Door opened when we came in, just like you said.
Yep.
The owner visited our table 3 times. Of the restaurant. He wanted to know about the service. He wanted to know if the food was acceptable. He wanted to know about us. And so by the time we left, we went back there twice during our trip, just because that relationship was created. The service was so good. It was phenomenal experience. Same way with Disney. You walk through, and every cast member is there to help, and they just have a different perspective on customer service. But that's part of the culture that they built.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. Culture is not what you say you do or who you say you are. It's just lived out by your daily actions. And that example of the Italian restaurant in Florida is so great because it's not like you went there yesterday, but you have a memory that is so clear and you can bring it up so fast. And I'm sure it brings back different emotions. If I were to ask you certain questions about it and, hey, what'd you have? What did your wife have? I bet you could tell me that. But if you went to a restaurant that gave you a basic experience, I don't even remember the name of it. And of course we didn't go back. And it's just small things. The owner taking time to come over 3 times just to make sure you were more than satisfied. That's all it is in business. And you can apply that to a law firm, to a bank, to anything. It's just, do I care enough to ask my customers either while they're experiencing our product or service or right after how we're doing? And be honest with me, I want to make sure it's more than you expected. So yeah, it's a great example. Yeah,
and it starts at the top. And when your people see you doing it, they're going to emulate that. So
exactly, yeah, and that's culture.
Yep, that's culture. It takes time to build it, and so a lot of people think that you can, bring in a professional like you, and it's going to solve the problem in 2 weeks. You can give them the strategy, but it's going to take their time and investment to build it.
It will, and that's what's great about it because it's not an overnight thing. It's not a quick fix, but when it is changed and when it's adopted and lived by every team member, the entire company grows because they're simply caring more about their teams. And you're exactly right. I mean, building your culture is kind of like building your reputation. You can do a lot of things really well. And if there's one negative instance, that's what people are going to remember. And so it's about slowing down to realize that, you might be the most successful company in your industry or your brand new startup and you're doing really well. That's great. But don't lose sight of who is helping you get there. Take care of your team, take care of your customers. And the product and service will figure itself out when you're asking for that feedback.
Yep, totally agree. You've worked with a lot of great leaders because you go into a lot of companies. And so, what qualities are you seeing in them that really separate them from others?
Yeah, the first word that came to mind, and this is not really separating because a lot of people are this, but it's honest. And what I mean by that is a really great leader doesn't matter what position they are in the company, but a great leader, it could be the CEO. Being honest is so important, not just not saying something that's not true, not just being honest in that sense, but being honest with themselves to say, hey, I know there's areas somewhere in this business that we can improve. And I'll take an honest look at it. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat things. That has been the number one trait that I've seen in really effective leaders. They really check their ego aside. And these are people who are extremely successful, have grown companies really well, really quickly, but they're saying, hey, I know there's things that I'm missing. And so can you help me identify them? And not just identify them, because that's one of the things that happens so often in a workplace culture is, hey, chief, there's a problem. I'm going to point at it. I can tell you all about it. Okay, have you thought about 3 to 5 solutions? Well, no, that's why I came to you. Right. But as a team member, we have to make sure leaders are trusting their team enough and communicating to their team clearly enough to say, hey, you're in this role for a reason. We want you, when you see a problem, to come up with some solutions and even try them. And if you fail, that's okay. Don't be afraid of getting fired. And so, that honesty and transparency, and also the trust that they have, is really something that stands out. The trust in their abilities. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people think that confidence equals arrogance when it doesn't have to. A lot of people today, especially younger CEOs and younger professionals, think like, oh, I'm earning X amount and I have this title by this age. And that stuff, it might feel great to you, but that's not leadership. That's not being an effective leader, because nobody else cares about that. And what you need to focus on is saying, okay, how am I taking care of my responsibilities, my priorities? Am I being honest? Am I being transparent? Am I being vulnerable? But also at the same time, when we are as a company going through growth is always very uncomfortable, and things usually will break down in certain areas because they have to in order to grow. How can I actually rely on my abilities? And how can I trust that I will be able to navigate us through the storm? I may not know how, but I know I've built a great team. I have great people in our corner. We can get through this, because to your point earlier, Chief, is your people are watching you every single day. So if there's something that shifts in the market, or if there's a new product that you launch that maybe sales aren't as effective, if you as the leader start to stress out and you're showing that and you're really worried and you don't have answers, they're going to operate the same way. And that's going to be a negative ripple effect. So it's about having confidence, not arrogance. It's about being honest with the team as to where we are, where we're growing, because one of the things I've seen is so many companies silo themselves to the point where nobody's communicating at all. And nobody knows the vision of the company. Nobody knows, we're in Q3, but like, what are we doing? What am I doing this for? Okay, cool. The company goal in 2025 is to earn, let's say, 35 million. Great. Why does that matter to me? I'm just making them more money. So if you've siloed yourself out too much, you're going to have departments that actually call themselves divisions. And I've heard this across so many companies. They'll be like, Steve, we've got a marketing division, a sales division, an account. I'm like, division? They're like, yeah. I was like, do you hear what you're saying? You're just dividing up your company and telling people, you don't communicate here. You're in this division. So call them departments, call them teams, call them whatever you want, but not divisions. Because if you're driving that division within your team, I guarantee you have people that have already gone through what I call quiet quitting. They've already quit their position. They're just still getting a paycheck. They don't know why they're here. You may not know why they're here, but you haven't connected with them. And so it all comes back from a leadership standpoint of, you could have 500 people as team members in your team. When was the last time you talked to every single one of them? Doesn't have to be an hour-long, 2-hour-long conversation, but to your point, when was the last time you walked down the hall? You went a few floors down and just spoke with people. Just ask them how they're doing. Ask them to tell you one thing that you could do today to make their job more efficient. I guarantee you, if you just do that, those small incremental changes will have a huge impact. And so, from a leadership standpoint, honesty, vulnerability, transparency, and then also trust in their abilities and having confidence that, hey, we can weather the storm. Don't know how long it'll take, but we'll get through it. Those are some characteristics that have really stood out to me.
Yeah, and you're really correct. I mean, I learned the most just walking around the office and just chatting with people. Not only learning about them personally and their families, but in that conversation, there would always be something that would come up, and there would be just nuggets of information that I would have never found out.
Exactly.
and also some just really great ideas, some really great fixes for what was occurring in the organization that I would have never thought of, because I wasn't that close to the work. And so, I mean, it's getting around and kicking the tires in your organization is really, really important.
It is. It's something that every leader should be making intentional time to do every week, if not every day, if they can.
Yeah. I try it every morning. I just tried to walk around the office every morning and just see how everybody was doing. And it may not relate to anything that was going on that day. I just wanted to see, but I would always things would always percolate up, but I would go, wow, I didn't know that.
Exactly. And what I love that you said too is you started your day doing that, because I've seen quote unquote leaders micromanage their way either out of a job or out of business. Because if it's, hey, I need to know what you're doing all the time. I need you to give me this report all the time. Hey, there's 3 new reports every day. If some people are, do you not trust me? Do you not think I'm effective in what I'm doing? What is the issue here? And so then that affects them negatively. It also breaks trust within their team. But when you're just kind of floating around, walking around to start the morning, hey, just checking in on people. It doesn't have to be work related. That's a different level of trust, because that shows me, hey, Chief cares. And he does hold space. And I do tell him about my child's soccer game, and he remembers it a week later or the next night or morning and asks me, hey, who won? How'd it go? How'd they play? That makes my loyalty per team member increase as well, because someone actually cares. That's what's so interesting I found about business. And if you just simply care more, if you just do kind of the things that maybe our parents raised us to do, just treat others with respect, care more, look people in the eye, when they're talking to you, listen, you just do those simple things, you will have that true connection, and they know you care and you do care, and it can solve a lot of problems.
Well, I think so many CEOs today are so focused on, the bottom line, that they forget that the bottom line is driven by the people that are actually producing the products.
100%. 100% gets overlooked.
Yeah, gets overlooked. So, you're into a lot of organizations, and you're seeing a new generation entering the workforce. And so in many organizations today, there's 4 generations for sure working. Yeah. So what are you seeing with that balance, and how's that changing some organizational life, if you will?
That's a really good question. Before the pandemic, I think it was actually a little different than it is now. I think before the pandemic, there was people may have had the idea that like, oh, I can say that I'm a baby boomer or a millennial, and because of that, I don't understand the other generation. We went through the pandemic. That playing field got leveled. Everybody's on Zoom. Everybody's working remote. You don't have necessarily the old, and I love it, but pen and paper. It's, hey, we've got to advance with tech, and we have to get up to date with this. And that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people, myself included. When I was in college, I was a lumberjack. I was literally on the lumberjack team, and I hated technology. I didn't understand it. And so what I've seen post-pandemic is, especially when we're just coming out of the pandemic, but people really just wanted to connect again, and they didn't care about age and background and all this and that. And I think today there's a different respect and understanding that maybe generations who are a little bit more seasoned have maybe a different respect and understanding that, hey, this millennial or Gen Z, they don't have nearly as much experience as I do regarding time, but they've compressed a lot of this through technology. And I may not know what technology really means in 2025 and beyond, or AI or things like that. But if I simply ask, I'm kind of surprised to realize that they want to teach me, or vice versa. Yeah. When I have millennials or Gen Z younger professionals say, hey, just realize that this person who might be a little bit older, you don't need to be afraid of them. You don't need to have conflict or anything. They might be threatened that you might think technology is the answer for everything, when they have some miles on their tires and they can show you a thing or two. So ask for help, ask for their perspective. And all of a sudden, again, when you break down the artificial barrier of like, oh, well, this person is 55 years old and I'm 25. So how are we going to connect? You're just making it more of a problem. They're just a person. They have experience. They'd love to connect. Go ask them for help. Say, hey, when you were in this position X amount of years ago, how did you handle this? What do you think about this? Hey, I'm thinking about applying AI to this thing here. What do you think? They don't need to be whizzes in it. They don't need to even understand it, but they can give you that perspective. And that's all it is, because at the end of the day, that's just building respect. That's building trust. That's saying, hey, I don't think I'm better because I know how to use technology, or I don't think I'm better because I have 2 decades more of experience. It's, we can share, we can learn, we can work together and collaborate. So I've definitely seen more of that, which I think is a good thing because everybody needs to grow and everybody can learn a whole lot from each other.
Yeah, I think leaders and organizations today, if they're not using generational mentoring back and forth,
yes,
they're missing a great opportunity because, people in my age bracket, we have a lot of experience. We have a lot of scar tissue, if you will,
100%.
that we can share with that younger generation. And at the same time, they can teach us about their perspectives, what their expectations are of the workforce, and also so much about technology. And when you can blend those two together in your organization and take advantage of that multi-generational mentoring back and forth, that's pretty powerful.
It is. And I love, you said it much more articulate than I did, the multi-generational mentoring. It's so true. And for an example, there's a company that I'm working with right now, and I'm listening to their sales calls, and they have a gentleman who's probably 50 plus, and everybody else on that sales team is probably 20 to 25 years old. But that gentleman who's a little bit more seasoned and experienced, he teaches the team what to look out for. Hey, when you get this objection, think of it this way. When you see this, think of it. And the younger group is listening and they're appreciating what they're hearing. And he is not the top sales professional, but he has experience. And he's not just saying things to say things. He's not talking to hear himself. He knows what he's saying. He's had a lot more interactions with human beings throughout his time. And it's really cool to hear that open dynamic. And he's like, hey guys, look for this, think about this. And they're conversing. It's not like, oh yeah, that's fine. That's a good point. Maybe that'll work for you, but not for me. It's collaborative. And that's really great to see.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it plays right into the value alignment I think that Gen Z is really looking for. And probably the next generations will, as they want to align themselves with a company or work for a company that has their value systems and or value system and align with that. And so I think building your organization of the future, you have to take that into account.
Yeah, you do. And I've heard definitely leaders of companies that are a little bit more experienced, older, whatever the case may be. What you just said often scares them and concerns them because I don't understand this younger generation. And there's 2 words that can solve that. Ask them. That's it.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you have to change your company and change your values and change your principles. That just means you can get data to hear. If you ask 10, 20, 50, 100 Gen Z, hey, what are you looking for in a company? Like, what are you actually interested in? What values? What, like you're saying, what morals? Maybe, and you're going to hear a lot of answers that aren't even about pay or benefits. It's more about, like you're saying, the non-tangibles, the respect, the maybe hybrid options, whatever the case is, does not mean you have to change your company to be that. But you will start to learn and understand, okay, this is what they value. Maybe it's more freedom of choice in certain things. Doesn't mean that they're going to work any harder. There's some brilliant young people who are making new creations and ideas all the time. And so instead of rejecting it and pushing back because I don't understand, you need to be in here 9 to 5 every single day, they may have a different perspective. And hey, maybe we can learn and become more efficient from that too. So yeah, simply ask them and listen. Doesn't mean you have to change your company or change your process, but you can learn a lot.
Well, and I think that the bottom line is, if you want your company to be sustainable in the future, you better engage them today.
So true. So true. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're not going to be able to move it forward without them.
Exactly. Yep. And that's how it's always been. If you look back historically, generations have always thought the next generation doesn't know it as well, or has this thing that's different about them. And that's okay. But that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a young firefighter, when I came on the job, one of the things, and I was working for the traditionalists, so it was kind of black and white.
Sure.
But I didn't really understand the generational perspective at that time. I mean, that was just kind of emerging, and I wish I would have, because it would have changed my approach.
That's a good
Instead
point.
of just complaining about it, I would have actually, got to know them a little bit better and probably migrated, some of the discussions that I had at that time much differently than I did.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think some, maybe not all, but I think people are starting to realize that it's okay I don't have to agree with it, but I could maybe listen and learn. I don't have to agree with everything, but I could hear a different perspective and, oh, you know what? And then who knows, maybe a year from now, that message they told you that clicks in. You're like, oh, okay, I get why they operated that way. I get why they said that, or whatever the case may be, or maybe it doesn't, but more information is not a bad thing. You can learn from a lot of different people in all different industries and all walks of life. And I think that's a great part of, you're talking about the younger generation, social media and things of that nature. Being more connected, it can feel like a total waste of time, or you can gain a lot of interesting insight and perspective that maybe could be applied in one way or another.
Yep. No, very true. So what are you seeing in the state of leadership today from your perspective?
It's an interesting one because, again, I think leadership is kind of like entrepreneurship, where right now it's a big buzz. Like everybody thinks it's being a leader, but believe it or not, I'm seeing people not believing that they're leaders, not even effective leaders, that they just don't think they are leaders. I go into a boardroom and I'll ask an entire company, show of hands, who believes right now that you're a leader? And I'll get maybe 20% raising hands. And it doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter what industry. And that's because of a just internal limitation, thinking that either A, leadership means you have to have been promoted and have a certain title, or B, leadership means you have to have some seniority. I had to have been here for a while, or I have to have a certain amount of volume or sales or production to show that I'm good at this. No, my son at 5 years old is a leader. What do I mean by that? His sister, who's 15 months, is watching and learning everything he's doing and trying to do that. That is leadership. He may not understand it fully yet, but he is influencing someone else's decisions and behaviors. And so you fast forward that to someone who is brand new. It's their first job coming out of college, let's say, in the corporate world. They right now do not believe they're a leader because they think they have to, again, have a title, have experience, whatever the case is. You can, by your behaviors, by your attitude, by your passion, positively or negatively impact everyone around you. And that is leadership. You don't have to, again, have done something tremendous. Now, there's different levels of leadership. There's a difference between a good leader and a great leader, but that's different. So helping people understand right now that, again, you could be in accounting. You are still a leader. Well, how? I don't talk to clients on a day-to-day basis. Doesn't matter. You're a critical part of the company. Without you, the company's struggling. If you're in sales, you're absolutely a leader. Well, what do you mean? I'm just focused on my quota and trying to hit that and reach new goals. Yeah, but you're leading the tone, you're leading the pace, you're leading the attitude of the company. Well, I'm in marketing. How am I a leader? I'm just making ads. You are the brand. You're the one putting out the messaging. You're the one creating the next 3, 5, 10 steps for the company, the offers. So everybody in a company is a leader, even if it's your first day. And you could think, well, I don't run a department. That's okay. You're still leading yourself. So if you are in a bad mood today, are you being a really effective leader? Maybe not. And so I always teach people 2 different cycles of leadership. There's 2 cycles I developed. One is called a shrink cycle, and the other is called a growth cycle. In a shrink cycle, I say, okay, what's the first thing that happens? And this is where 95% of leaders live in a shrink cycle, believe it or not. First thing that happens in a shrink cycle is you have a failure. You have a failure. Everybody fails. The second thing that happens in a shrink cycle is you feel shame. You don't like the way it feels. Whether you're a good leader, a bad leader, or a great leader, when you have a failure, it doesn't feel good. People aren't looking forward to that. So you feel that internal feeling of shame. And what does it make you want to do? In a shrink cycle, you want to play the blame game. And I say you either want to point the finger or you want to give the finger. You want to blame everybody and everything else and say, it's not my fault. It's the team. It's this person who messed up. They didn't get it to me on time. I got in an accident. Well, you're not taking any ownership there. So what happens when you feel that blame, shame and blame, the next part of that cycle is you shrink. Your internal confidence, your leadership ability, the trust your team has in you, the way they view you as a leader and as a team member shrinks. And guess what happens? Throughout the day, you have more failures, and this cycle continues and continues and continues. And that's where 95% of even leaders live, not just great leaders or anything, leaders. 5% of leaders live in a growth cycle, and only 5% live here because it's really hard to do day in and day out. But in a growth cycle, first thing that happens, you have a failure. Both of these cycles start off with the same thing, failure, because it doesn't matter if you're Tom Brady, the best quarterback ever, he's failing at things, but it's what you do with that failure. And so in a growth cycle, you have a failure. Step 2 is you take ownership. Step 2 in a shrink cycle was you feel shame. You feel badly about it. Step 2 in a growth cycle, you take ownership. You say, you know what? The team failed on this objective and that's my fault. Not their fault, it's my fault. As their leader, as their director, whatever the case is, I should have taken more time earlier on to see what we were struggling with and be more efficient then. And that's on me. Guys, it's not on you, it's on me. The third thing that happens in a growth cycle is we learn. We have to learn from every single situation that happens because again, you can have a failure and take ownership and say, yeah, that's on me. But if you don't learn from it, guess what? It's going to keep happening until you learn from it. So you have to learn so you can apply and you can teach your team and say, hey guys, next time we have this kind of project or this goal or this task, here's how it hasn't gone so effectively in the past. And here's a different direction, a different approach we can take moving forward. And then the last thing that happens in that cycle is you grow. And that could be a 1% change every single day. But if you have a failure and you take ownership and you learn from that, and that you'll grow. That's naturally how it happens. But that's why only 5% of leaders live there, because it's really hard to do. It's really hard to take ownership for everything that's happening around you, because as humans, we want to deflect it, push it off. It feels bad. I don't want to, go through this lesson again. And it's not easy. But when you get people clear on those two things, they can obviously identify in their life, in certain areas, maybe it's my personal life. I'm in a shrink cycle. Maybe professionally, I'm growing and doing really well, but at home, things are tough, or vice versa.
Yeah.
It's not to make them feel guilty. It's just say, okay, cool. You can now decide, do you want to keep running on autopilot in this cycle, or do you want to take ownership and shift into a growth cycle? And so, again, a very long-winded answer to your question about the state of leadership today, but a lot of people don't believe they're leaders until they recognize that, I guess I am, because everybody's paying attention to me too, and maybe I don't even know it. And I need to look at myself and give myself some more value and some additional respect to realize that I'm doing the best I can right now, and I'm leading someone, even if it's just myself.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to own it, and you also have to learn how to, learn how to fail forward.
Definitely.
And, as part of that growth mindset, I think as a leader, and the leaders that I've worked with, and I tried to do this myself, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. But, you're going to have a failure in any leadership position. And, if it can take you down or it can take you up.
100%.
And just depends on how you look at it.
So true. And that's so much easier said than done.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard, especially when, the stakes are high.
Yeah.
Or it costs the company, or, you've invested a tremendous amount of money, and then all of a sudden something doesn't work like it's supposed to. And so, it's very, very difficult. But, the people that are successful, the companies that are successful, they learn how to take that, own it, learn from it, and move forward.
Yeah, they do. And I think your point is great. Fail forward, fail fast. Don't be afraid of it. There's so many answers and so many lessons within failure. And if we're afraid to try to take that next step, even if we don't know what the future looks like, we probably won't have as many failures. And that's not a bad thing. And I think with the younger generation, we have heard a lot that, growing up in school, hey, if you get a C or a D or an F on a test or something, that means you're not good at X, Y, or Z. So people get so afraid of failure and trying different things and trying to figure it out. And they get in the corporate world or the business world, whatever it may be. And it's the same thing. It's, hey, I know my parameters. I was hired to do this, and anything else is above my pay grade. Well, that's not a healthy culture. It's not going to help you grow. It's not going to help the team grow. It's okay to fail. It's necessary.
Yeah. And it's part of the organizational culture you need to build, is it's okay to try and fail.
Exactly.
As long as we learn from it.
Exactly. It's the only way to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. So my final question for you today is this. As you think about legacy, what does pay it forward look like to you? And how do we make sure that we're leaving things better than we found it for the next generation that's coming up?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, so pay it forward, when you were asking that question, the first thing that came into my mind was just my kids, family. And so it's not easy for me to turn on or off like the business side of it. I'm usually always trying to think about clients and this and that. So it's very hard for me to switch that off and just be fully present with family. And so my wife and I have had conversations about that. And I'm like, you know what? It's just so true. Kids are never this young. You don't ever have as much opportunity to positively or negatively influence a child. And obviously we want it to be a positive influence. And so making sure that, okay, I talk to people all the time about purpose and intentionality, and then really asking myself those same questions and thinking, okay, legacy, a lot of times when I train that to people or even think about it, that's 50 years down the road, 30 years down the road, or things like that. But it's actually happening right now. It's every interaction you're having. It's the way you're conducting yourself, the way you're showing up or not showing up, the way you're, I call it either being committed or actively committed. There's a difference. Like, you can be committed and you can show up, or you can be actively committed. You can be really proactive and really be on your A game. And so again, it's not always easy, because people are people. We get tired. We have different stresses, different motivations, different things pulling us in all different directions. But legacy for me is, okay, how am I speaking to my son? How am I leading as an example? How am I taking care of my daughter? How am I doing those things? How am I treating my wife? How am I trying to make time to be intentional with her or as spontaneous as possible? And those are areas that are not easy for me all the time. But that's what I want people to remember as, okay, this is someone who really made a positive impact, not just professionally, but also personally. And paying it forward for the next generation it's the same. To me, it's kind of very similar. Like my son, when I go out to these seminars or things, holding conferences, he'll ask me like, where are you going this time? And this and that. What are you going to do? And I just said, we're going to help people, because to me, that's what it is. And I'm like, man, I hope that he realizes as he gets older, he can do whatever he wants, obviously, too. And if that just means helping people in a totally different way, that's amazing. But I don't think it's weird, because in 2025, so many people are chasing that, hey, you need to have a private jet and be a multimillionaire, all these things. But to me, that's getting so far away from the fact that if we're here to serve, we can really help people. And how are we going to do that? And everybody has different channels and different abilities and different gifts to actually serve and to help people. And for me, paying it forward, maybe I can make a positive splash or a positive impact now that people could look back and say, yeah, he left it better than it was, whether it's a training and development program, whether it's just a conversation that I had with someone to make them feel better because they deserve that, or spending extra time just to listen. And again, I don't do these things perfectly, but that's what I'm after, is just trying to just get better at those things, because I think with those incremental impacts over time, it can compound, and then you can have a much bigger impact maybe than you thought.
Yeah, totally agree. Your legacy is going to be measured by the people that you positively impacted, not by what's in your bank account.
100%.
Stephen, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts and your experience and your wisdom with us today. Really appreciate you being on the podcast, and look forward to our continued discussions down the road.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chief. And I talk about service all the time, but you're someone that lives it, has lived it, and embodies that. So thank you for all that you've done and continue to do to make a huge positive impact.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on the Leadership Crucible Podcast. If you enjoyed today's content, make sure you tap on the subscribe button, share this with a friend, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. For more resources, check out the description below, sign up for our monthly newsletter, and visit our website at theleadershipcruciblefoundation.org. Feel free to leave us a comment and connect with us on social media at the links below. We'll see you next time.